Ready?
Okay, Mr. Rivera?
Application of La Lazarian Properties LLC to amend the approval decision of the Board of Trustees dated October 18th, 2023, and filed in the office of the village clerk on February 7th, 2024, to modify the number of units and provide additional on-site parking upon the property currently known as 114 Old Country Road, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 350, lots 4 through 7, 8, 11, 13, 14 through 17, and upon the property currently known as 109 Front Street, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 355, lots 25, 36, 128, 129, 137, 139, 140, 242, 243.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mr. Gibbons?
Yes, Mayor. Last month, this board declared this a Type 1 action under CEQA. Pursuant to the CEQA regulations, the board was required to give notice to any involved or interested agencies, which it did. At the end of the 30-day period, no agencies responded to the coordination request, which is not unusual. It only means that those other agencies believe that this board is in the best position to judge the environmental effects of this project. As a result, I would ask for the following resolution from the board. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby declares itself lead agency in the review of the proposed action for the Village of Mineola, County of Nassau, State of New York.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And
Yep.
the full text of that resolution, which I spared the board, will be available at the village clerk's office by about noon tomorrow. I will also state for the record that the Nassau County Planning Commission has reviewed this application, has not asked for any modifications, and has recommended local determination by this board.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Keefe, affidavit of mailings? We have them. Great, thank you. Okay, so this will work just like the previous application. The applicant will make their presentation, then they will interact with the board. Any experts or witnesses that approach the podium, please state your name and give us your address, and at which time, if the board has completed their dialogue with the applicant, then we'll open it up to public comment, okay? So, Mr. Walsh?
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Deputy Mayor, trustees, and the Mineola public. My name is Kevin Walsh from the firm Walsh, Marcus, McDougall, and DeBellis, 229 7th Street, Garden City, New York, and I'm appearing here tonight for the applicant. I'm here tonight representing Kevin Lalazarian, Frank Lalazarian, who are here, and Lalazarian Properties. They have also brought Cliff Wynn from their office, but we're requesting a modification to the approval granted by this board on October 18th, 2023, roughly a year ago. That approval granted the Lalazarian Properties 200 residential units in a building to be known as 120 3rd Street, and 240 residential units in a building to be known as 125 3rd Street. And this was done based upon amenities and a public hearing and amenities provided by the Lalazarian Properties to the village. I'm here tonight also with Kevin Lalazarian and Frank Lalazarian and Lalazarian Properties. I also have Dave Wortman and Pat Lenahan from VHB, the experts. David is the environmental expert and planner, and Patrick Lenahan is the traffic engineering representative from VHB. Finally, I have Avi Malhotra, who is the design architect who you met at a year ago. Avi has designed what we believe is a beautiful building, and I believe you think so. And I've put this building up, the color rendering up for you so that it can remind you and everyone here that the rendering that you see, the color rendering, is remaining the same. There is going to be no change, virtually no change. It's certainly not a distinguishable change. So if I had Avi do a color rendering for this new project, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference from the two of them. The height is remaining the same. The physical footprint is changing slightly because of the acquisition of a couple of lots, but it's virtually the same. And we understood the village's position last year ago on the approval on this, and we believe that we're in the spirit of that approval with this modification that we're seeking tonight. Before I begin, I just want to confirm that, and I think Mr. Gibbons did, that the entire record before this board as it relates to the prior hearing is incorporated into this record. This is a modification for seeking a limited change, but I believe for the purposes of the inquiry, we'd consent to all of it being in the record.
Yeah, we've set it up as an amendment, so the entire first hearing documents are a part of this hearing record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibbons. And as you know, and everyone knows in this village, Kevin Lalazarian and his family are big believers in Mineola. They're financially invested here, but with them, it's different. It's more than that. They participate and support many village functions and civic and charitable programs and causes. Their buildings are virtually 100% occupied and very well maintained. The pilot payments that they make in connection with these buildings, along with the full tax, real estate village tax payments they make, help on exponentially to support the tax base in this village because they have big properties and they generate big taxes. Even since the last time we appeared a year ago, the pilot payments on all of the Lalazarian buildings have gone up, the village taxes go up, and we've discussed the idea that that operates as an annuity for the village. We are a positive impact on the school district because we increased the tax base without putting too many students in the schools. And that is no longer an issue, and I don't believe it's argued to be an issue any longer. And it took a while for the increases in pilot payments and the like to be felt to the point where everyone could realize these are positive in connection with that aspect. So in presenting this application tonight, we believe we are truly presenting something that is in the best interests of the Lalazarians. Obviously, they are developers and they are in the business, but it's also in the best interest of the village. I think that one other comment I'd make is when we were at the Nassau County Planning Commission presenting this a couple of weeks ago, the commissioners, to a person, listened closely to this modification. They are believers in Mineola. They spoke highly of the powers in Mineola that make decisions like this that other people in other locations are afraid to make, and how they are important because they add quality housing to the population, pedestrian walking, and they don't impact the schools. So the impacts associated with all of these developments are truly a positive. There are impacts, and we've acknowledged that, but they are truly a positive. And I think when you hear this entire application, you'll look, this is even a little different than the other ones. The impacts on this one are clearly positive. I know we talk about how minimal we're going to impact things, but I think in this particular case, if you listen, you might find, as we have found, that we are going to impact things in a very positive way. I think the best way to start looking at this project is to look at I thank the administrator for bringing easels out to me, because usually by now I've dropped a couple of these on the board. This is a site plan for the site. You have the copy of it here. And so I think when the approval was granted a year ago, Kevin Lalazarian and his dad, they looked at this entire area, the entire area around here, the 3 blocks that encompass from Roslyn Road to the east, to Willis Avenue to the west, north of Old Country Road. There were basically, to the tracks, 3 tax blocks which have a number of units in them, a number of lots, a number of buildable lots, and most of which are developed to some extent, but all of them have a development capacity and capability. The Lalazarians saw their property and they looked around and they saw what is a mixed kind of bag of the way things have grown over the time. Many nice developments there, many offices, many houses that have been converted to offices, some vacant space. And I think the thrust of this application is how can we help ourselves, but how can we also help this entire area grow up, because it's going to be developed out. And so how can we positively participate in that growing out? So they set about to acquire 2 additional lots, which are the lots, I'll describe them on on the site plan. The first lot is on 3rd Street. It's just north of 3rd Street on the east side of the north building. It's approximately 31 feet by 100 feet. They acquired that lot and are removing the development or the property or the structures that are on that lot. At the same time, they're acquiring a second lot, which is on the south side of Front Street. This is on now the west side of that north building, and that's 36 by 100, which would be about 3,600 square feet. These two lots are helping them in a number of ways. First of all, they're coming off the development capacity for anyone else. They are buildable lots. One of them at least existed that way, and they both have that capacity, but they're coming off the board, so to speak, for development purposes. For the Lalazarians, what these do is they allow them not to build in them, because they are looking to increase the open space down there, but to move their building and straighten their building that you approved to allow this side to build right to the property line, the property line before the acquisition. And that is on both sides. So these two lots are vacant. They will remain vacant lots, not built upon, but they do allow them a little more to square their building off, take the jog out of their building and make it a much more efficient building. At the same time, this lot up at the top here, the Lalazarians own that lot. That's a large lot. It's one of the larger lots in these 3-block area, these 3 blocks of buildable lots that I spoke of. They acquired that as part of the acquisition of 114 Old Country Road, which is the office building that's coming down. That was the off-site parking that was granted to them, not to them, but to the people who built that building, so that they had additional parking. That's 38 spaces paved. It is no longer needed for the development because the development site parking will be all on-site below the building. So the Lalazarians' proposal is to take that lot, give up its development potential, give it to the village as part of this application, and donate that. So before I even get into describing what they're asking as in return for that, we are already seeing and should see that 3 buildable lots in a relatively small area that have all development capacity are coming off the board, so to speak, and can never impact the village with impacts that are associated with every development. So the last component of what the Lalazarians would like to do, you are all aware of the village parking lot on 3rd Street and Willis. The Lalazarians would like to improve that property, make it a recreational property. It's owned by the village. They estimate the budget for the development of that into a recreational area to be about $1 million, but they are more than willing to do it. Obviously, their building is here, it can help them, but it'll be a park for everyone, so it'll be I know the village is big on improving their parks. I know them because I've been to them. Trustee Casado and I go to concerts there, I know. And I think that's in the spirit of that effort by the village, which is there. Improving this park would be a nice thing to do, and it's at great expense. So that's the overall logistical proposal from a large point of view. But I know you have to look at this also as it relates to what are the impacts associated with what you're asking to happen now. So how are the Lalazarians going to keep the building looking like I said we were going to keep it, and at the same time get additional units in it? So the plan and the study is as follows. They're seeking to take 31 of the 2-bedroom units that you've already approved in these buildings and make them 1-bedroom units. So they're basically taking 31 bedrooms and the ancillary space around them and taking it and reserving it to allow them to put additional units in this. So they're looking to put 60 units in total between the 2 buildings, making them 250 units for the north building and 250 units for the south. Right now, the north building is approved at 200 units and the south is at 240. So 10 additional 1-bedroom units will be going into the south building, and the north building will get the remainder of those units, the 40 units. But 31 of the units will be scaled down to be 1-bedroom units. Those 1-bedrooms will be the size and scale of the approved prior plan. They're not looking for micro or smaller units. They're not trying to cram anything in. They have the room to make those one-bedroom units, part and parcel, and the size of the one-bedroom units that are part of the original application in terms of the scope of them. They were also going to tweak the building, and this is one change in the site plan, which you wouldn't be able to pick up on that, but it is a change. The courtyards are going to be expanded slightly to allow for, I think the overall footprint is about 3,200 square feet, floor plan plate increasing, to accommodate what is 60 new one-bedroom units, converting 31 of the two bedrooms to one-bedroom units. So one way of looking at this, and I know it's not a perfect way, but I like it, is to say we're adding 29 bedrooms to this entire project. And in return, we're doing a couple of things. We're giving the village some amenities, which I think the village likes and we should be giving, but it also, in terms of impact, it's taking these lots that are going to be developed or will be developed at some point in time, it's kind of pulling them off the board. So let's look at the impacts associated with these additional units that are going in there. And you will look at these as our experts have looked at them. You have an environmental assessment form done by VHB, which studied this. You have a report done by VHB, which studied the particular changes as it relates to this. And let's go through them. And with your permission, I'm going to go through them. I'm not the expert, but I've read the report, and then obviously the experts are here for any questions you have, and they can either reiterate it or they can contradict me, but I don't think they will. But I think that you'll have them here to drill down on any of them that you have questions on. So school children, we are adding a number more units, but we are reducing down the two-bedroom units to one-bedroom units. Everybody here that's ever talked about these developments here, the public, and I think yourselves, are more concerned as it relates to students with two-bedroom units than one-bedroom units. So in this particular case, this is, to me, a positive influence on the schools because the tax base is going to go higher, and we're not going to put any more students in as a result of this. Parking. The prior approval here had 630 parking spaces all on our property below grade. This plan, because we are increasing the number of units, we're changing it to 700, a minimum 753 units. So we're adding a significant amount of parking spaces there in order to get to the 1 1/2 parking space threshold, which you are certainly not bound by, but it certainly improves by adding over 100 spaces, parking spaces, below grade. And that's really being accomplished by going an extra floor of parking on the north building. So whether we need that parking or not, it's going to be there, and it'll be 1 1/2 parking spaces. The fact that and I think the public knows this, and I think you've commented on it, two bedrooms have more likely to generate 2 cars than 1 bedrooms. And in fact, I remember the last hearing, people were concerned about that. So here we are taking the 2 bedrooms and reducing them to 1 bedroom, and some of them, and that should have a positive effect on the fact that there's enough parking there. And the same thing is true for traffic. The report indicates that the traffic changes or impact will be negligible here. But you know also, logically, if I have less 2 bedrooms than I had before, there's less likely I'm going to have cars. So for the same reason that they're not going to be parking there, there's not going to be necessarily a second car or less likely to be a second car. So traffic is concluded to be an insignificant change with respect to this modification if it's granted. The third item you always look at is water and sewer. And that has the same item. Obviously, we are increasing the number of units, but we are also reducing down the 2-bedroom to 1 bedroom, and it is logical to assume that 2-bedroom units are going to generate more water because they're generally going to be another person or two in that apartment, and they are going to create more water, more showers, and the like. So the data is in our report that shows that these are negligible changes, but it's even logical when you think of the reduction of 2-bedroom to 1-bedroom units doing that. Now, why is the Lalazerians willing to go from 2 bedrooms to 1 bedrooms? Nobody studies the rental market like the Lalazarians, and they believe there is a strong market for these one-bedroom units close to the train station. So for them, this makes perfect sense. Our job here tonight is to convince you that it also overall makes sense for the village. So having dealt with that, I just want to, my last point before I take any questions or I turn this over to any questions you want from anyone else, is to say, we have to look at this plan in overall. It's not just what we do to one building. You know, we study, I know I bring applications, and you've heard applications, and many times they're site-specific. What's the impacts with this change? I can tell you that they're de minimis or negligible, not significant, and that's what the data shows. And it's truly the case, it's true. But from where you sit and from where the public sits and where we're looking at this as an applicant, we're saying, okay, but at some point in time, all those negligible on-site studies, when does 100 negligibles mean something not negligible? We are bound to study what's ever in the area that's on the drawing board, but when nothing's on the drawing board, all you can do is use your common sense. So we tried to use our common sense here in saying the only way to truly say that this is a negligible impact is to say this is what else comes with this. Taking 3 development sites off the grid, one of them that's very large, because I'll talk about that one. Any development there is going to generate more than we're probably putting on if you even conclude that we're adding some impact with the development here, because that is a large site. And so I think when you consider this application in total, you realize that, look, this is not about just this building. This is about how we are as a village and you as a village are generating or determining what's going to be in our downtown, this area of the downtown. And are we going to start planning lots around decisions like this, giving up minimal impacts in return for some valuable stuff? This lot here, it's worth X million, depending upon what the use ultimately is, what the village's use is. So there's certainly something to be gained by that for the village. The creation of the recreational space here is consistent with what you try to do all throughout the village. In return, the Lalazarians are trying to meet you by just getting some additional yield out of the building, and we think the overall plan is a good one for everyone. The last point I'll make is there is another component of this that I've heard it at these board meetings, public hearings from the public. It's when you build these sites out, you know, there's a period of a year and a half, 2 years. What's it going to be like over here? And that's certainly good. It's part of the environmental review. How are we going to impact the area when we construct? So if each one of these sites, any site here, is developed in isolation, you have at different points in time different effects, different impacts. Construction for that site might tie up traffic while deliveries are made. This is virtually the same. There is the timeline is not going to change. The impacts of the surrounding area are not going to change because it's all on one site and will be developed as part of that site. So there is another benefit, that benefit you get from not having 4 other sites or 3 other sites going through a development phase and dealing with what the impact of that is. So we're hoping that you and last point I'm going to make it, Trustee Casado, because I know you've in good faith had difficulties with some of these developments, including our last one. And I can understand your position, and I think you've been very consistent with it. But we are already at that stage where that was approved. So I'm hoping that you look at this and say, you know, whether I voted yes or no on that one, I could consider voting yes on this one because of the other aspects of this, the removal of some sites that might be developed in the future. And you are truly concerned about the impact of development on the areas. This is an opportunity to say, okay, at least this one does a little more than the other ones. This takes sites off, gives some of them to us, some of them are incorporated in this building, creates more open space, and actually makes it a good plan, one that the village can accept. I have no further comments until questions, Mayor.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you, Mr. Walsh. I just want to reiterate and make clear, because there may be some confusion, this project has been approved approximately. We heard it about a year ago, and I believe we voted on it probably around 9 months ago or 10 months ago. So we're not going to relitigate. We don't need to hear every traffic pattern and every little detail, because obviously that is in the record. And so currently, we have a parking lot that is on 3rd and Willis that has 31 spots currently, and the developer is offering to redevelop that lot, which, by the way, is severely underutilized currently, into some kind of public amenity with a playground and perhaps some other public use, but also, for those of you who can't see, there will be 14 spots, parking spots there as well. So when people drive there with their children to play on the playground, or where, you know, they're proposing here a putting green with bathrooms as well.
That's correct.
With water, et cetera, we're obviously going to need to have a place for those people to park if they are going to drive down there from other parts of the village. This is not going to be a park that is only for the residents of these buildings. The park is going to be separate from the buildings. So we're giving up 31 spots there, but really gaining back 14, because those 14
Yes.
will continue to be there. And then on the site there to the northwest, that is currently on Front Street and Willis Avenue, although Willis Avenue kind of dips down there, and that is 38 spots. So if we are to look at this, we're really gaining 52 spots and losing 31 spots for a net of about 21 spots increase, and also guaranteeing that lot to the northwest will never be developed. It will remain as parking or whatever the village wants to do with it.
That's
It will be
correct.
the villages. Obviously, we will generate revenue, and there's obviously some concern. People always ask, you know, talking about previous hearings, where do guests park when they come visit the residents? Well, this would be a perfect place for them to park, because they would literally just cross the street. And again, it's difficult to see there, but the lines that are drawn here, the building is just moving slightly to the east so that it's centered to the building to the south. The courtyard is actually widening, it looks like, by at least 10 feet. So the central courtyard is actually getting bigger. And I do like the idea that those two lots next to abutting the north building will not be developed there and there. So, and I certainly understand, I understand the math. We did the math earlier as well. It literally means 29 more bedrooms, which, if we're to use, some common sense, it would mean about 29 more people, as opposed to what we had approved previously. And I also want to reiterate that the height is not changing, the width essentially is not changing. What people can see from the street is not changing. There will be no difference. Everything is essentially interior. Additional parking is being placed underneath.
Yes.
We won't see that. So, obviously, we voted yes, 9 months ago or 10 months ago, and the only thing that we're here to contemplate is if we are comfortable with this amendment to add these additional units, with the caveat that we're also getting the parking spaces. We could argue that this developer or another developer, we could have stayed with this project as it was approved, and a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 10 years from now, this developer, another developer could come before this board or a future board and seek to develop that lot with the 38 spaces with a building that would have an additional 50 or 60 units, which is what you're seeking here. So I just wanted to put that in context so that we are not rehearing the entire presentation. I actually believe we had 2 hearings. Did we have 2 hearings?
We had 2 hearings.
We had 2 hearings. So we had 2 hearings, and I think that people, sometimes maybe they're not paying attention, or they're away and they don't see it, and they think that, we're approving a new building. This building has been approved. The question that we really have, and I'll save it for the deputy mayor, is when are we gonna do
What's
this?
happening on Second Street?
What's happening on this, when?
No, on your other project.
Second Street.
Second Street.
Okay. No, I can tell you what that is, because I dealt with counsel for the Long Island Railroad. We're about to schedule
So the concern is that we've approved many buildings, including
Yeah.
for this particular developer, for others, and we have yet to see shovels in the ground.
Yes.
So we would like to start to see some
Okay.
movement.
There's
So I
two,
know it's not related to this hearing, but
no, but it's actually helpful to all of us to reiterate this. So that plan is, we've been trying to push that plan. There are two components to that plan. One is a building permit, and I think your building inspector can give you where they are on that. We believe we've sent on a second set of comments, we now into your engineers, and the comment list was very short, and we're actively moving that. I will also tell you that the Lalazarians have a team that Kevin calls me on, telling me, I've got a team on standby, I need to get this building started. The second component of that is one that we've struggled with, or they've been a challenge, like you know, the Long Island Railroad. And not to get overly technical, but they needed to get the DOT to remove a reverter interest in that lot to allow the lot to go to us that didn't mandate all Long Island Railroad parking. So that is done. The deeds have been passed on that. Today, and it is today, Ed Porto, who is counsel for Nixon, who is counsel for the Long Island, who is attorney for Nixon, who is counsel for Long Island Railroad, he and I are about to schedule a closing date, making sure that the title company has everything that they need. So the answer to the question is very, very quickly. And we understand, we want it as much as, maybe not as much as the village, I won't know how much but I know how much we want to start that project. Looking very much forward to it.
when do you think the closing would be, if you were to guess? Weeks, months?
Did I tell you there's a shot at it being this month? This is October. If it kicked into November, it will because of some technical thing on the deed, the LI Railroad signature or something. But in terms of its ability to close and the parties on both sides' willingness to close, it could be as soon as a couple of weeks, might be as long as 30 days.
And once that's done, how much longer until shovels in the ground? And I know that we're not here for that.
No, I know,
it's
but
tough to
but it is
separate those two things.
actually helpful to let you know. We have a team ready to go on this, right? Immediately, yeah. And I do get this call, I've got a team standby, I'm having them on standby because I want to start right away. So I think that's absolutely a done deal.
Anything else on this?
Yeah, I'll go back to this one. I'm sorry to throw that at you, but you have to realize that as a board, we do approve a lot of projects that we really believe in, and we want to see them go forward. And our residents are asking, you approve these projects, when are they going forward? When are they going forward? So unfortunately, you're tied to both of them, and we had you here, so we
Yes.
asked you the question.
No,
So thank you for that answer.
I'm glad that I think we're both glad that you did.
Yeah, I just believe in that project too, so
Yeah.
thank you for the answer. So anyway, back to this one. As you remember, when this first came to us, I was very concerned about number of people. However, I came to see what this will do for our community and what it brings to our community. And as we said, we did the math before we came out here, and I'm not concerned about 29 additional bedrooms at all. I don't think that's probably about how many people are in this room right now. I don't think that it's going to do anything that's detrimental. I don't think it's going to even see an impact as far as traffic and water and all those things. So I'm not concerned with it. I think you give quality housing to our community, so I appreciate that. I think this is thought through. It is rare that a developer comes to us with investing in open air. So the fact that you're doing that is phenomenal, especially here on Long Island, especially here in Mineola. We really do like our parks, as you said. I think this is adding another element to our community for both these buildings as well as the rest of the residents, because you're doing something different, proposing things like putting greens and just another open space. So I appreciate that. And it's not only the open space of the park, it's the fact that you're gonna have open space on each side of your building. So I really, truly appreciate that. It's
Thank you.
rare that that happens. So that's huge for me. I just want one question. You said something about water before. I'm assuming the number of bathrooms per unit is still, it's one bathroom, even for 2 bedrooms, is that correct? No, so 2 bedrooms get 1.
2 bedrooms get 2 bathrooms generally, 1 bedrooms get 1 bathroom.
So we're actually reducing the number of bathrooms within the whole, right?
Right.
When you reduce 2 bedrooms to 1 bedrooms, you're reducing bathrooms.
Correct,
So water service is actually
yes,
better off.
yes.
Okay. I think those are all of my questions. So back to timelines. We approved this 9 months ago. If we were to approve this, what is the timeline on this, and when do we see it starting?
So we have been in the drawing stage on the approved building, and that does take a while because of a building of
Of
this
course.
complexity. We also, as you know, we couldn't just tell the people in 114 they had to vacate, so we've had to work with them. We are almost worked out with everybody moving that building. I think by the end of the calendar year, this calendar year, they will be removed. If this were granted, it will require some some changes in our drawings, but those that are already on the board. And I think right after, and I say after, the other one is well on its way being built, we would be looking to start this one. But there is no delay in this because we'll have 2 sites that are valuable land sitting doing nothing. So we're ready to go.
So my question, the other one's being held up to a closing on the property with the MTA. The properties that were purchased on each side of this, are those already closed and in your hands, or are those?
Good evening.
Good evening.
The property on 3rd Street's already closed about a month ago, or 2 months ago. The property on Front Street's in contract, and the closing is scheduled, I believe, next week or the week after,
Great.
in the month of October.
Okay, so that won't hold us up.
So it's already in contract. And
Will
just
not hold it.
one more thing, the other property on 111 2nd Street,
Yes.
that we started that development or planning it with the MTA about 6 years ago. Far before there's any idea of doing anything over here. Different governor, different MTA leadership, a lot changed. So COVID happened. It took the MTA a very long time to get it to where it is. One of the closing conditions with the MTA as part of that contract was to demolish the building. We didn't want it to be a closing condition. We demolished the building
Yeah.
now nearly 3 years ago because we thought they were imminent. Then they came up with the DOT
Reversion?
reverter interest that the parking lot next to our property had a restriction on it. It took them years to resolve it. They've confirmed that's completely done. Then the Attorney General had to approve it. So that was a lot of things that dealt with the MTA that had absolutely nothing to do with this.
Mhm.
We're very excited about that project. We're gonna build it. It's starting that is independent of this, and just because the plans on that building are 100% done, it's been submitted, the plans for that building are literally hundreds of pages, construction level plans. They've been submitted to the building department. The building department, a couple of months ago, gave us comments on it.
Mhm.
We thought we addressed all those comments. Just last week, we got now very few comments to it, which are just more technical of nature, nothing, architects sometimes interpret codes a little bit differently. We're
Mhm.
down to relatively few issues. We've asked Mr. Liam for a meeting with the village's consulting engineer to go over the last handful of comments.
Okay.
So and none of them are of very significant in nature.
Okay.
It's like one of the biggest comments is one door's travel distance to the stairs is in the hallway is 2 feet more than the code allows. So literally that level of stuff. So the
Right.
door for the apartment is going to be moved 2 feet closer to the exit hallway. That's the finite level
Right.
of a flavor of the comments.
Right.
I think that'll get resolved if we have that meeting next week or as soon as scheduling allows. And as far as the land swap with the MTA, everything is done. We don't have any preconditions on our side. Everything's been done by us.
Okay.
They're telling us that the closing will be done any day now, and they've already actually signed the deed to us. It's just dealing with the MTA.
Yeah.
So we believe that project can start within months, far before anything gets started over here.
Okay.
And these 2 buildings over here, even when we were here last year, we always knew that there's leases at these buildings that have
Yes.
to naturally wind down, and that wind down is happening by the end of this year or January of 2025. So that should be getting started imminently. It's really up to the MTA is the biggest thing, and of course, getting a building permit, but that's very close to.
Right.
So,
Thank you very much for the explanation, really. I'm sorry you're dealing with so much red tape with the MTA,
Well,
but it's good to hear that we're almost at the finish line.
The
because-
DOT is gone. They were the last year and a half, and nobody could understand why, even the MTA and the LIRR. So now it's Mark Hoffer, local counsel, and we had a conference call with the title company who's doing title for both parties last Friday, and she said, this were her words, "I don't see any reason why we can't schedule this closing. We seem to have everything that we need."
Great news.
Okay.
It's, you know.
And
you
just so that, I'm sorry, just so the record is clear, the last speaker was Kevin Lalazari.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gibbons.
I don't know if Kelly had that.
So yeah, thank you, because to your point, there's an empty lot there, so it's a little more in sight for everybody to ask the question. So I really appreciate that explanation. Good luck.
Thank
I hope
you.
it closes. And as far as back to this project, I mean, ultimately, what's in front of us is a change of units. I don't think it's going to cause an issue that's going to influence our community in a negative way at all. So I think we're okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Casada?
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Lazarian, good to see you as well. So, Mr. Walsh, as you recall, when this board voted on your original proposal, it was not a unanimous vote. I was the one that voted no, and I will continue to vote no. I'm sorry, with all due respect, when this board votes on the modifications, I will again vote no.
Okay, understood.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clark, Trustee Clark?
Just, what's the estimated time for construction on this building?
12, 18,
Uh,
2 years?
Construction duration is about, good evening, Mr. Clark. Construction duration is expected to be about 2 years. We're gonna be starting on the north building first that has the parking garage, because as tenants have moved out of the building, there's not really a need for that parking garage. There's other parking spaces around the building itself, the 114 building. So that demolition should be starting very soon. That'll start with 2-year duration. The office building will be a few months after, waiting for utility disconnects at that building and demolition of a bigger building, and that'll also be 2 years. But it's 2 years that, most of the 2 years should be an overlap, probably 2 years, and then maybe the second one starts 3 or 4 months later for that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Trustee Solosky?
Thank you. The project sounds wonderful, and I'm echoing what the board has said in the sense that I love the open space, the putting green and the park, I think is wonderful addition to the village. I truly do. Overall, this building will increase the density there, these new modifications, because that was one of the concerns that at least I can remember 2 board members mentioning at the hearings. They were concerned about the density of the building. And at least for me, I thought that was one of the reasons we came down the number of units. Now that we're going up, we are still going to increase the density of the building. I just want to make sure I have my facts straight.
No, you do, but the definition of density, yes, this project, these 2 projects will get additional units, but density is usually measured in relation to land. And so we are increasing the size of the land for this project. And in addition to that, we're providing other open space off-site that is. So you are technically correct, we're increasing the number of units per building, but density, we measure number of units per acre or something like that. That's what sometimes you hear density. We are increasing the size of the plot. So for instance, on the north building, with the acquisition of these 2 lots, our footprint is not really going up on that building because it's going up very negligible because we're increasing the thing. So if you did a per unit acreage, it's minimal because of the increased space. So if your question is, are you adding number of units? The answer is yes, but I think I like to think a question should be asked then, what type of units, what's the impact of those units, and is that something they're better units because they're more than 1 bedroom than 2? So I think you're right on your question, though. The answer to your question, I think, is yes, with an explanation.
Okay,
Thank you.
fair enough,
you.
because when I read that in the report on page 2, you know, it said increasing the building's density, and like I said, at the previous hearings, that was a concern we had, the density of the
Yep.
building. So I appreciate the explanation of how it is measured in respect to construction, so
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all.
That's all? Okay, I'll ask you to have a seat.
Okay.
We'll see if we have any comments from the public. Anybody in the first row? Anybody in the second row? Anybody in the third row? Anybody in the fourth row? Come on up. And again, when you approach the podium, please give us your name and state your address. And please speak slowly so the
Hi, my
stenographer.
name's Lisa Pollock. I'm one of the owners of the adjacent property to the east. It's now become adjacent as a result of the purchase of the building to the east. I'm the next building. And I appreciate all the efforts of the Lalazarians to satisfy what I imagine are really diverse interests within the community and try to serve the community of Mineola, and I appreciate that greatly and think they've done a wonderful job. I appreciate Mr. Walsh taking the time to speak to myself and my husband, who are owners of the adjacent property. The one question that I do have, although I see all the benefits, mention was made of the negligible impact, and I may be missing something. What I'd love to understand more, I understand that the picture will remain the same and the building will be as beautiful as it was. The width will not change, the appearance won't change. My concern is the depth of the building. What I'm understanding tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time I'm hearing that the depth is going to 3 levels rather than 2. And I've not seen anything to help me understand the implications of that change in depth on the buildings such as ours and the other neighbors. Our building is from 1930. I know another neighbor who happens to be here, his building's from the 1890s. What impact does going down another level have on our properties? That seems like a big deal. I haven't heard an explanation on the depth, and I'd love just to understand more about that.
We'll ask them that.
What's your
Yep.
address?
And again, thank you for speaking to us beforehand. This
Ms. Pollock, what is your address?
102 3rd Street.
102 3rd Street, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pollock, we do appreciate that. And I do want to mention, I wanted to mention earlier that essentially, most of the changes are taking place on the north building, the biggest change, right? The north building is really the one that's increasing by 40 units. The south building is essentially remaining the same, only 10 units. So most of the modifications, albeit, yes, interior, will be in the north building. That's
is correct.
okay. Anybody else in the fourth row? Fifth row? Okay. Mr. Walsh, if you don't mind, coming back up and addressing,
Mr. Lalazar,
you want to address that question? Yep.
I think he's better able to do that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Kevin Lalazarian. So with regard to depth, the south building always was planning to go down 3 levels. The north building was previously going to go down 2 levels. It'll go down 3 levels. We already have done geotechnical engineering and borings at both sites. The groundwater is more than 100 feet below ground, and the supportive excavation has been designed for around the entire building. It was already designed when we got the approvals nearly a year ago for the south building going down 3 levels, so we're going to be duplicating that same supportive excavation now for the north building going down 3 levels. And by way of recent example, Morgan Park also goes down 3 levels. Over there, we did the similar style of supportive excavation, went down 3 levels, and we actually had some adjoining structures over there, including the Mineola Bridge that was within about 15 feet, 12 to 15 feet of our excavation going down 3 levels, whereas in our proximity to your property, we're about 30 feet away. So we've done this right here in the village without any incident, and it's already been designed to go down. And the ground here in Mineola is very great soil in that it's for excavation purposes and supportive excavation, We're not going to be chopping rock or some other means of excavation that you may have read about in other areas. That's our plan for the digging down 3 levels.
Okay, and I would just add, for Ms. Pollock, all of the traffic in and out of this north building will be coming from Front Street, so there will be, there's no ingress or egress into the building off of Third Street, is that correct?
The cars coming into the garage will
Right.
be coming into the Front Street entrance.
Right.
They'll be exiting
Oh, they'll be
on Third
on
Street.
Third, okay.
No change in the egress or exit plans from
From-
prior.
right.
And there will also be the courtyard that is getting, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, 10 feet wider. And that's going to be a courtyard just for passenger, generally pickups and drop-offs. The garage entrances aren't in the courtyard, so that can stay more of a open space that people could be walking their dogs, hanging out. Cars aren't going to be really going too much into the courtyard.
Okay, thank you. Any, Ms. Pollock, any additional questions?
If that explanation satisfies you, it can satisfy me. I don't understand, I'm not in construction. It seems to me there's a huge difference between 2 stories under and 3 stories under. Now that the house is purchased, I'm the next house,
Right.
and it's cause for concern. No one's ever come to my house to look at anything or study anything.
Well, I certainly would encourage, and I don't know, but I know that our building department will look at it to make sure that if there are any cracks or anything that you witness that you obviously bring to the attention of Ms. Lalazarian. I would perhaps take some pictures before the construction starts, and then perhaps some pictures after. Perhaps Mr. Lalazarian will even put in some kind of, I know that they have the technology to measure, vibration and things of that nature. So that's something that you could work out with Mr. Walsh and Mr. Lalazarian. I will only say this, that, in my experience, not only at Morgan Park, but at 1/3 and other buildings, we have gone that far below grade. The hospital was here before. We had approved the project where they were doing 3 parking levels below grade as well. I will tell you that for the developers, the biggest difference is money. The further you go down, the much more expensive it gets. It gets exponentially more expensive to go another level down, which is why they obviously avoid or try to avoid doing that. And I will also mention that from the previous application, this actually is now slightly overparked from what traditionally we expect of 1.5. The original application was shy of 1.5. This is just north of 1.5, and we do have those 38 spots just to the rear of the building, and which are revenue generating, and we also have the 14 spots just to the east. Something separate from this application is that, and the residents that were here, especially from Birchwood Court lately, and some of your neighbors were here, is something that we may have to look at some point, is the traffic flow in this area, and how it flows, but that is independent of this, and it could be exacerbated or helped by this project for us to understand a better traffic pattern, making things one way the other way, or because I do know, I lived at Birchwood Court for some time, and it is dicey back there, but I also know that 30 feet to your west is an ugly, dilapidated parking garage that serves no purpose, aesthetic or otherwise, and you are gonna have a beautiful building here, so, yep, that's it. Anything else? Mr. Walsh, anything else? Anybody from the board? Okay, so we approved this project, so if we were to, say no to this addendum, as Mr. Casado has already said, we're not denying the project. The project is being built as presented a year ago, right? That building will be built, hopefully sooner rather than later, right? So all we're looking to do here today is to make those minor changes to the interior, and obviously the amenities that were discussed here as well. And I'll also add that as the number increased to 500, that increases the number of affordable units by 6, correct?
Correct.
So there will be 6 more. So instead of 45 affordable units, it will be 50 or whatever. Instead of 44, it will be 50. Instead of 44, it will be 50. So all of that remains the same. You know, the negotiations in terms of amenities and the, you know, all of that will obviously take this increase into consideration, okay? So having voted on this a year ago and approved it, and all of those concerns, those major concerns were addressed back then, I would like to vote on this tonight, on this amendment, so that we can move this project along. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor?
Yep, oh, sorry,
Could I jump in?
sure.
As you know, we have kind of a dual track when we have these hearings. We have the CEQA process and we have the application in chief. If you intend to vote the application, I would just propose the following resolution to close the CEQA portion.
Okay,
Thank you. Whereas the proposed action is a type 1 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the Board of Trustees has reviewed the provisions of CEQA as related to the proposed action, including the review of the information contained in the CEQA documentation consisting of Parts 1, 2, and 3 of the Environmental Assessment Form and other information in the record with respect to the proposed action, and whereas the potential impacts and the magnitude and importance of potential impacts and benefits have been considered by the Board of Trustees, and a recommendation for adoption of a negative declaration has been made as the proposed action will not have a significant adverse environmental impact. Again, we're talking about the amendment here. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed action will not have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts the attached CEQA negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And both the supporting resolution and the full CEQA negative declaration will be available at the clerk's office starting around noon tomorrow. Thank you. And
thank you.
if I could have a vote on that
Okay,
resolution.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Salaski, second
Second.
by Deputy Mayor Sartori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the original approval.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Clark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Salaski. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sartori.
Yes.
Trustee Casado.
Gentlemen, all due respect, I vote no.
Trustee Salaski.
Yes.
Mayor Pereira.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be at the groundbreaking next week.
For which building?
Yeah,
Lincoln Street or?
yeah. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lalazaro. Okay, we have 2 more hearings to go.
hear those together?
They'll be quick. The reporter's getting nervous. We have a cot for you in the back, so. Yeah, these will be quick.
Thank you. What? They already did.
No problem. Have a good one.
You as well. Thank you for everything.
Have a good one.
Yeah, I will say something.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We'd like to continue with our hearings, and we also have a work session to follow. So thank you all for coming out. Have a great night. And now, Mr. Rivera, please call the next item.
I'm going to do the next two items together. Proposed local law amending Section 510-27 of the Municipal Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Removal and Storage of Vehicles, and proposed local law amending Section 510-28 of the Municipal Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Truck Exclusions.
Okay, I will have Mr. Gibbons just give us a brief explanation on these two proposed local laws.
Sure, Mayor. As the board knows, we have a new superintendent of public works, and the new guy has recommended some changes. With regard to section 510-27, removal and storage of vehicles, it sets forth situations where the village has the authority to impound vehicles, and it gives that authority specifically to the superintendent of public works. He just wanted to add the language "or the superintendent's designate." So that's a majority of the changes. In addition, he wanted to add a situation where the village could remove a vehicle where it is left for more than 72 consecutive hours. We've had situations in the village where vehicles have been abandoned and have sat for weeks and then months with nothing being done. This amendment will allow the superintendent or his designee to call for the impoundment of that vehicle. In addition, in section 510-28, the superintendent has had occasion, which I should say it relates to truck exclusions. The superintendent has had situations where he has a commercial vehicle that's not permitted on a certain block, and the commercial vehicle operator has pointed out to the superintendent that, hey, that Suburban is also over 3,000 pounds. Why don't you ask that vehicle to move? The average Suburban today, I looked up today, is 5,800 pounds. So he wanted to update the code to have truck exclusions with respect to 6,000 pound limit and not a 3,000 pound limit. He also wanted to add to the list of truck exclusion blocks Colonial Avenue. And finally, he wanted to add to that code provision that no mobile home, trailer, boat, recreation vehicle, or motor home shall be stored or parked on any street, highway, or municipal parking field within the incorporated village of Mineola. The penalty for violating this section shall be set from time to time by resolution of the Board of Trustees. And if the board sees fit to adopt that local law, I would then put forward a resolution for the amount of the penalty. And that, in sum, is the two local laws.
Okay, so this is obviously comes as we experience certain things, and sometimes we just have to do some housekeeping, and as society changes, we have to adapt, and certainly we do get calls from time to time. Our parking supervisor and our superintendent of public works do experience situations where we just don't have the capabilities to enforce certain things. So this kind of tightens those two things up. So, Mr. Gibbons, do we vote on these two together?
You could vote separately if
Okay,
you
vote
could.
separately.
So, Mayor, what's happening with mobile homes? You can't park them in your driveway, or?
No, you can park them in your driveway. You cannot park them, shall not be stored or parked on any street, highway, or municipal parking field.
Okay.
So you can't park them at Wilson Park and leave them there for
Yeah.
months on end. You
Right.
can't park them in front of your house and leave it there for months on end.
But if a relative comes to say hi with a mobile home, they could put it in your driveway, they could park it in your driveway, right?
Yeah, well, this would be 72 hours without
Yeah.
moving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, your scenario would not be covered under that provision.
Okay, all right, just asking, okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion
I
for,
wish I had a mobile home.
yeah. I'll entertain a motion for the first proposed local law amending section 510-27.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Casal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Clark. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed local law amending section 510-28.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Salaski. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Yes.
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 And if I could, Mayor, to just give Kelly one last piece of work, I would put forward the following resolution. Resolved that the penalty for violating Section 510-28 of the Municipal Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Truck Exclusions shall be $250.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
trustee Clark, second by trustee Casado. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Gibbons?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, entertain a motion to close the public hearings.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori, second by trustee Casado. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're done with our
That's it.
hearings. Our deputy clerk is throwing things around. So we are now going to just go right into our work session. Okay, so Mr. Rivera, I'll entertain a motion for approval of bills and payroll.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Salaski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Rivera.
Resolved to approve a request by Girl Scout Troop 1460 for the use of a Village Hall Community Center general purpose room to host a badge workshop on Friday, November 22nd, 2024, from 6 to 8 p.m.
I'm just going to go ahead and preempt. Trustee Casado votes no on that. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
That's terrible.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Casado. Touche. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Sartori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolved to authorize the purchase and installation of holiday lights. Vendor is Holiday Outdoor Decor, and the cost is $34,540.
Okay, so we're getting ready for the holiday season. I think we're really gonna like what we're doing in our downtown and on Mineola Boulevard. So this is to approve both the purchase and the storage of
And installation.
said- and installation.
And removal.
And removal
Yes.
of said lights, hopefully before St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
This year. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Casado. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Salaski. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, entertain a motion to, before we close our work session, I just want to remind everyone of a couple of things. This Saturday, the 19th of October, we are going to have our fall festival right here at Memorial Park from the hours of noon to 6. It's going to be a lot of fun. The weather is going to be great. And then right after that, when you're done with that, you can head over to Hampton Stadium, where the Mineola High School Marching Band will be hosting their home show, and they probably will go on. I believe the awards ceremony is at 8:15, so the Mineola Marching Band and 13 other bands will be competing. So you can go straight from the Fall Festival, where you can get, hot chocolate and pumpkins and all that, and then head over to the home show. That is this Saturday. Next Friday, right here at Village Hall, our annual Halloween party is right in the community center. Just a reminder that you have to be a resident of the Village of Mineola and have a leisure pass to be admitted to the Halloween party. And the Historical Society on Sunday, the 20th, is having an open house and a trolley tour. The trolley tours are sold out, so you can't get a space, but you certainly are welcome to the open house, and I'm really looking forward to that on Sunday, the Historical Society. And if you don't get an opportunity on Sunday, they do have hours of operation during the week, and I think it's worth a visit. You'll be amazed as to what you will find there. So I'm really looking forward to this trolley tour on Sunday. Anything else? Ms. Bardo? No? Okay. Entertain a motion to close the work session.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Clark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Ally.
St. Patrick's Day, that is true, and we could change the color.
All right.